everyone, welcome back to the weekly crypto recap show where we have lots of echoes and fun things. We were just talking about the Justin Sun luncheon, the $4.6 million that was bid in a charity auction so that Justin could have lunch with Warren Buffett. All in all, just to kind of summarize this, Chris, because I don't want to stay on it too long, I think that it's exciting for the space. I think it's cool. I've watched interviews with Warren Buffett. A lot of people say that, oh, maybe he's like a secret titan and already is a whale in crypto and he's playing some game there. Honestly, I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think so. I think that, judging from what I've seen him say about crypto, he doesn't get it. He's talking about all these things as if they're interchangeable, as if Facebook coin is the same thing as Bitcoin, is the same thing as JP Morgan coin. I mean, they're worlds apart, in my opinion. I think he just doesn't fundamentally understand why Bitcoin is useful as a decentralized money, as a money that can't be controlled. You know, this is worlds apart from the value that something like Facebook coin might provide, or JP Morgan might provide. This is a completely different use case, in my opinion. So I think he just doesn't understand the value proposition. And it is kind of interesting, 7 people going to lunch with him who do understand that. I mean, that could be interesting. You make a great point. Do we really want someone like Warren Buffett involved in the crypto space? Who knows? But at least, this could be a step towards him getting it. And I think the more people that understand crypto, the better.
Yeah, I hope so. And, as an aside, if, Justin managed to bring along Vitalik, it'd be interesting having those guys get lunch together too. But I agree. It'll be amusing to see what happens here and where this goes. But Warren is invested in the current system, and he is invested in not getting it. So it'll be fun.
It'll be fun. Let's move on. I wanted to talk a little bit about this case we brought up last week. So Kik, when they decided to fight back against the SEC, and they set up this crypto defense fund, and everything seemed like it was going swimmingly. Like maybe this could be a great case that we could fight the SEC with. We could get a new Howey test kind of thing going, a new way to judge what is and isn't a security in the space. Now the SEC then turned around and actually filed a lawsuit. It's not just a complaint and anything. They went ahead and filed a lawsuit against Kik, probably in retaliation for them fighting back. Doesn't look too promising for Kik. I have to be honest, I was really on their side and just yeah, let's fight this. But, the law is the law, and as much as I don't like the law, it does seem like Kik did a lot of overt things that that made the kin token a security, and I don't know, it doesn't look promising. What is your response on this?
Well, Leo, like I was saying last week, that I do hope that Kik is successful, but at the same time, they are probably a pretty good case for the SEC to set precedent here, because, man, they don't look like they did a good job of following any of the laws. A few of the takeaways I had from reading some of the stuff was they asked the Canadian SEC if they were security. The Canadian SEC said yes, so Kik refused to sell to Canadians, and then didn't bother asking the SEC in the US. It's like, all right, you have a good idea this is probably going to happen. Other than that, they were also, at the time they did their ICO, they were losing, their expenses were running $3 million per month when the 2016 they brought in 2.2 million, and 2017 they brought in 1.5 million. So they were bleeding money. And then they didn't really disclose this to their board or the public or anybody. So all of this just really seems like they were trying to do a blatant money grab to salvage themselves in the hopes that somebody would buy them. And it was just really bad.
It doesn't look good for them. They tried for a long time to have mergers and things. They reached out to a bunch of companies to try for acquisitions. There was a lot of things going on, and no one wanted to buy them. Everyone saw their balance sheet and was up. And there were also some dodgy things with the features on the platform that they were offering, right? So they were offering investors basically a different platform to normal people, kind of trying to pass it off, it seems like, oh yeah, we've got these special sticker features on our platform, but they didn't. This was in development, and they just showed the investors like a different kind of beta model or even alpha site that wasn't actually launched at all. So they're kind of misleading people about what their product actually was.
That's kind of a key point there, in that they were showing people this system as if it was fully operational, and they did not tell any investors that it was still in development and not actually functioning until after the ICO, which is just shady as all get out. You're trying to broadcast and sell something as if it is fully functional. Look at our fully operational battle station, and collecting money from them, and then like, it doesn't really work yet. Like, okay, I mean, they are, based on what I'm reading here, again, this is the SEC's complaint. I don't expect that they would have factual falsehoods in this, because it doesn't seem, the SEC usually isn't quite that bad. But assuming everything here, taken at face value, Kik looks really, really bad. Their CEO looks really, really bad. And this is probably going to hurt the ecosystem as we end up tying all these other ICOs. So, it's just another ICO like Kik. So obviously it's going to cause harm for any future action that the SEC brings against other ICOs.
Indeed. So we'll have to see what happens there. I think that, before I was really kind of gung-ho, and I still am. I want to see us fight back against some of these draconian rules against blockchain as much as possible, because I just don't think they're helping anyone. I think that we'll have a lot more prosperity in the world if we let these companies grow and make the world a better place, which a lot of them are trying to do. And I think that a lot of these rules, like, they're so heavy-handed, they're so archaic, so I do want to see people fight back. At the same time, Kik didn't do a good job, and it's not really the trailblazer that I hope that it would be in terms of getting these things sorted. So I actually want to invite to the show now, we have Ashe, who's the co-host of EOS Radio. I should say EOS, because I actually learned recently, I've been saying it wrong all this time. I know there's been a battle and everyone's like, it's EOS, not EOS. And some people are like, it's EOS, not EOS. This is kind of a digression. But actually it's named after the Greek god of dawn?
Goddess, I think. Yeah, the Greek goddess of dawn.
Yeah, so it is actually EOS, and I have to break this habit of calling it EOS because it's not an acronym for anything. So there you go. But welcome to the show, Ashe. It's wonderful to see you.
Thanks, Naomi. Hey, Chris. Nice to be here.
So actually,
good to have you here.
I got to hang out with the EOS people. Yes, EOS people. It's a hard habit to break. I got to hang out with the EOS people. Yesterday, I went to the Block Producer Conference here in San Francisco. And that was really, really fun. I got to see lots of great presentations. People were talking very candidly about some issues with the network, some of the exciting things going on with the network, things that need to happen in order for this to succeed and just be as awesome as it potentially could be. And that was really nice to see. I like going to conferences where things are real. I don't like watching things where it's all about like everything is great, it's never been better, because no system, none of these blockchain ecosystems are like that. There are issues in all of them. So it was great for me to get a perspective on, what are some of the things that are being dealt with in EOS? What are the exciting things that are going on? One of the really exciting things that I think is going on is a new platform that was just announced on June 1st. It's called voice.com. And it's kind of like, it seems like it's kind of a Steam It type thing. And the reason that I'm excited about this is because, Dan Larimer's behind EOS, and he was also behind Steam. Steam is still, despite all the competitors out there, the #1 site, like social media competition out there in the crypto space where people can earn content from posting things. So I'm actually really excited to see what Voice is all about and what new features Dan has added in order to improve upon this last iteration that he made. So Ashe, I wanted to invite you on to kind of talk us through what this is.
Yeah, so it's not unknown that centralized social media is starting to fall out of fashion. And we even see Facebook pretending to do something with a coin, global coin. I mean, come on, give me a break. But where they're charging, $10 million and they want 100 nodes or something like that to run this. I don't know if it's going to be a blockchain, but people are starting to want to own their identity and own their content and actually be rewarded for this. And this was the breakthrough with Steam back in 2016. It's like, hey, social media seems to be a really good use case for blockchain tech. And so with the popularity of Steam, but Dan left, and the team that stayed around didn't fulfill his dreams of Steam. But now he built EOS so he could build other dApps on top of it, and voice is the most recent one. And I really want to talk about the gamification of voice. Everybody kind of gets, okay, social media, look, there's inflation that's created every day, and it's not created through mining, and it's not created through purchasing like an ICO. These voice tokens are created and distributed by users taking action on the blockchain, submitting content, upvoting someone, leaving a comment. Once you engage with the platform, it can trigger a token distribution, which is a really cool way to create new tokens, distribute them to your community, and build community that way. But what's really interesting is that voice is a noun. It's the name of the platform, but it's already become a verb. Like, you can voice a comment. If you see, let's say, we're voluntarists. So let's say that Eric Voorhees writes a really great article, which he does often. Well, we can add voice to his content and increase its influence, or increase its popularity, or basically pay for it to be seen on the platform if we agree with it. Well, what we do there is we would spend our voice towards his blog post, or maybe, Naomi, you make a comment right below it, and it's a really great comment, and I want to voice that up to the top.
That's very likely as well.
Well, yeah, right? Yeah, every once in a while, you've got great things to say. So maybe I'll voice it up to the top. But what happens is, whenever I voice your comment, I'm burning those tokens, right? And so it's and some of these tokenomics and some of this gamification is still being worked out, but it's really cool that you literally have to put your money where your mouth is now. And if you want to support a cause, you support that cause by spending your voice tokens. Now, if somebody else comes after me, I voiced your comment, somebody comes after me and revoices your comment, well, I'm going to get some of my voice tokens back that I spent to voice your comment. And then that person, is waiting for someone else to come after them and voice that. I'm hoping that we're just creating a marketplace for voice here, right? Anybody can add voice to a comment that they want to support, but they have to use their blockchain assets, their blockchain tokens, and spend them to add voice. It removes a lot of the monopoly, I feel like, that influencers have, because it requires influencers to constantly come up with good material, and people who support it to burn or to spend their voice tokens in order to keep that influence.
So I think at the moment you can apply to be an early tester on this site. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Voice.com, right? And there's some technical limitations on voice around resource management, and I won't get into some of these details, but we need EOS version 1.8 to be released before voice can be released. This is being deployed on our test nets right now, and voice is already being deployed in internal Block 1 test nets. But once EOS 1.8 is deployed on the main net, which will be the first hard fork upgrade that EOS will have to go through. And so it's a really big deal, and we're being very careful. But I'm expecting this probably Q3 of this year to start opening up, and then working through some of the U.S. regulations around token distributions. Americans will probably be able to sign up for voice in Q3, but most likely won't be able to take their voice tokens until our masters tell us that it's okay.
Our masters tell us that it's okay. Well, that's exactly how it works. You have this great platform that's going to benefit a whole lot of people, so obviously the barrier is going to be the government stopping that. So we will see what happens there. But as I said, I had a great time getting to know some of the EOS community last night, and I put a video on my Twitter. I don't know who saw that. It's like everyone's dancing. I think it started out with like me and my friend Sarah and Ashe on the dance floor. It's just the three of us dancing.
And by the end of the night, it was everyone in the room.
Community. Everyone was on that dance floor. It was like the most gratifying dance.
We started that. Yeah. We're the dance party starters. I also want to mention that there's been a lot of criticism and confusion about the KYC aspect of voice, and I think this is really significant. Dan Larimer identified that anonymous trolls and bot farms and all this stuff are kind of wrecking our social media right now. And you really never know if you're communicating with a real person or not. And there's a lot of benefits to creating digital societies when there's strong identity associated with it. For example, I host EOS Radio. Maybe for my EOS Radio community on the voice platform, I only want high quality, top tier people involved. And that may mean that I want at least some level of KYC, or better said, verification, human verification, to allow you into my community so that I can keep, all the nonsense, low quality trolls and bots out of it. And I want a small, tight-knit community of people who we can work with and we can build trust with, right? Instead of trying to be the most popular because I've got 500,000 bots that follow me on Twitter. But this identity layer is going to be very paramount to the dApps being built on the EOS platform. And they'll be able to API call into Block One's voice platform and say, is this account verified or not? They won't have access to any personally identifiable documents, but Block One is going to open up an API access so that I can say, hey, I want to build this community. I only want verified people, real verified people. Is this account verified? No, then that person doesn't get my community, or that person doesn't get to interact with my dApp. Yes, it's verified. All right, let's roll.
So, Chris, you look like you have something to
I
add
know,
to all
he
of
looks
this.
in pain over there.
Yeah, anyone who's watching, no, you guys can't see what he's doing on the screen, but he has very visual reactions to everything that's said on this show. I maybe should just do a Chris stream one day where it's just on him. We just watch his reactions because they're kind of awesome. Chris, I hand the microphone over to you.
The ANCAP voluntarist in me winces highly about a decentralized solution relying on government ID to verify individuals.
Yeah, I hear that. And just know that the original plan was not to use government ID. It was to create sovereign blockchain identity. But the government's, Block One has $4 billion and they're an easy suit for the government. And so they were required to use government IDs, unfortunately. Dan Larimer's original sovereign blockchain identity solution didn't require that, but unfortunately we live in a highly regulated world.
So how do we get away from that? What's the solution then? If someone with that amount of resources can't fight the system, then what hope is it for anyone?
Well, think they can't fight the system like a small startup can, because they are a huge target. When you have $4 billion, you better believe you're in the eyes of the government. So how we solve this is we have smaller teams around the globe looking at non-government ID, sovereign blockchain identity, and competing at that level. Where you can have three verified, companies that do identity verification that don't need government identity, and that's the back door into all this. But for now, Block One has to use government identity in order for we slaves to be able to use this platform. But over time, once the idea that it's necessary to have some layer of verification identity on a blockchain, other people are going to come up with creative ideas who can maybe skirt the laws or maybe can go under the radar a bit or aren't as big of a target.
What we need is early day Uber to come around, before they became this giant target and everyone's going after them. The ones who came in under the radar were just hey, here's a cool product. Soon everyone's using it and it's hard to shut down. You really can't fight that.
And I want to give the floor to Chris for a minute because I can see he's still in a bit of angst over there.
Yeah, you guys, he's got some great faces right now. All right, Chris, show them your face.
I'm trying to figure out what government regulation is involved that keeps Block One from validating users any way they want to. I don't know, there's no real government intervention or government regulation involved in Twitter giving certain people blue check marks. So I'm trying to figure out what Block One's dealing with here.
I think it has to do with Block One is doing a UBI. And so every verified voice member gets free tokens every day. Basically, you're getting your free voice tokens. And they like the position, and I think very well so, is we give you voice every day. And so you can go use that voice tokens on the voice platform. You can sell your voice like we're doing on Facebook right now. We just don't get to reap any of the rewards. You could sell your voice tokens, but the idea, or you can use your voice tokens to voice up a comment that you think is aligned with your voluntarist views, for instance. But just the fact that they are dripping voice tokens to every verified account They look like a money transmitter possibly, or, the last thing the government ever wants is for free people to be able to give wealth to other free people, because that diminishes our dependency on them and their monopoly on the money supply. So I'm sure they're looked at as a bit of a financial institution within all financial institutions for the most part. If the government can, they're going to require their identity in order for you to do it.
No, that makes sense. That connects the dots there, because
Yep.
you're treating it as a financial instrument and they're handing it out. So
I'm sure they will be, but it's interesting because there's no ICO. They literally just created these tokens and they're just giving them out. You can't go and purchase them, so they're not going to be securities.
you're purchasing them through your involvement, and there's some weirdness there. So I understand why they're doing it. It'll be interesting to see how Facebook manages the same thing with their global coin that's supposed to be launched in a few weeks.
And I would doubt that the utility of the global coin token would be anywhere near the utility of the voice token. I would imagine that the global coin token is going to be more just like a fiat coin of some fiat asset coin of some sort. Whereas the voice token isn't a stable coin. It's literally a utility token to try to use your voice.
Yeah, it frustrates me that they are trying to jump through these hoops. It would possibly limit my involvement on the social network to have to AML KYC before I can join it. Because
and there are, Dan and Brendan have mentioned that they are looking at ways to offer anonymous accounts, but are backed by, there's like a voice token bond that a non-anonymous account can put to create that anonymous account. So if that account turns into a bot or into a troll, then those tokens may get burnt or something.
How are they planning on handling accounts for organizations like EOS DAC?
Yeah.
Other decentralized autonomous organizations.
Right. So you will be able, from what I've heard, now remember, this is still a bunch of hearsay, but the question was asked, two questions. One was, do I have to use my real name on the platform? And no, you don't. You will be able to use a moniker or something like that, but your real name would be stored and hashed on the blockchain. And so you asked about businesses. Yeah, you could create a business account just like you can in Facebook, but that business account would not qualify for the daily voice airdrop.
So then the people behind the business would have to use their voice to back the business.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think this puts downward pressure on current influencers because, they may not actually be seen unless their people are willing to spend voice to voice up their opinions. It's going to be really interesting.
Yeah, it sounds somewhat similar to what Mind is doing and some of the other ones out there. So it'll be interesting to see how the space expands into the different decentralized social networks. So,
I'm really excited about it. I mean, I'm a bit of an EOS fanboy, but
no, I didn't pick that up, Ash. I missed that.
I saw the popularity of Steam and where it was the first blockchain that people could use without knowing it's a blockchain. And it was in the top 100 visited websites in the world for a while at the top of the bull market. So, I think it's a great use case for blockchain tech. And I'm proud of them. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, everyone knows that I'm always posting all of my content on so many. It takes such a long time for me to upload my stuff.
I know you need a virtual assistant to do all that.
If only I knew someone who dealt with virtual assistants, Ash.
I'll help you out.
Thanks. But I am definitely going to be adding voice to my list of platforms where I'm going to be putting everything. I'll test it out. I'll let you guys know what I find. From my experience with so many of these types of platforms already, I mean, they're quite distinct. Each of them have different communities, different features that I like or dislike. And so I think I have a pretty good grasp after many years of using a lot of this stuff of what's going on in the ecosystem. So I'll definitely keep all of you updated on where voice fits into that, what are the good parts, what are the bad parts, and, whether I think you guys should get involved. Generally, I err on the side of just get involved and test it out for yourself. But I will let you know what my experience is as well. But thank you so much, Ash, for coming on.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Naomi.
Yeah, it's been
Thanks,
awesome.
Ash.
All right, see ya. So the next thing I want to talk about is sort of this battle that we've been seeing really brewing and coming to a fore about surveillance in the crypto space. You know, you have governments that are cracking down, wanting more surveillance. We just talked about some of it with all the KYC that's kind of being enforced and expected in a lot of these larger platforms. And you've also got on the other side of things different companies who are coming out with products to try and combat this. You know, it's this constant cat and mouse game, right? It's going to be a never-ending battle there. So one thing I do want to mention, and we've mentioned Australia a lot this week. Oh my God, what's happening in Australia? So just a side note. So there's so much media censorship going on in Australia. Like I'm kind of scared of that country right now. It's so secretive. There've been raids on the major public broadcaster there, the ABC, where they've gone into offices. They have the ability to delete and alter anything in the systems. Their warrant is so like broad that they can basically do anything in this newsroom. They can subdue any article. They get, you know, there's no freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is not a thing in Australia. America is like the only country I know of that really has that right, and they're enforcing it. Everywhere else on the world, it's like, nah, we'll pick and choose, thanks. And Australia is really one of the worst offenders in going after free speech in sort of like this Western world. They're just clamping down and shutting down articles all over the place. So that's something that's going on there. But just as a kind of context for you what's going on in that country, but they're really cracking down on crypto avoidance, crypto tax avoidance schemes at the moment. And there are a lot of things that they're doing. They're looking into specific cases as well. So I mean, it seems like Australia is not out of the ordinary at all. This is happening in a lot of different countries where the government is really cracking down and making sure that no one can get out of the grasp of the tax organizations of that country. So what are your thoughts on some of the things going down in Australia, Chris?
It's, you know, dystopian is a word that comes to mind when looking at it, because it's really bad. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week. You know, a friend of a friend down there is dealing with the ATO and related to Bitcoin stuff. He responded to them saying basically screw off. And then they came back to him and said, oh, yeah, I know we asked for stuff 10 years ago. We're not actually allowed to do that. Just go back 4 years. You know, knowing that if they had, you know, if anybody was just, oh, no, the ATO is coming after me, they'd give in and give them all the information they can and likely screw themselves. So this guy then, of course, went and sent them a bunch of paperwork from 4 years ago via fax with the giantest font ever to screw them. But, you know, so we'll see how that goes long term for him. But they really are trying to continue to paint Bitcoin as used for criminals. I mean, one of the quotes here is like, at no other times have criminals been at greater risk for being caught in Australia.
Oh
They're
my God.
intermediaries who are paying a role between tax evader and an offshore entity. That's the only reason you would possibly want to use non-fiat currency, is if you're a criminal.
Yeah, no, it's insane. And not just that, like not just in Australia, but in the Netherlands, they shut down a cryptocurrency mixer. People are really going after those. So these technical ways that people have thought of to keep financial privacy, which by no means is something reserved for criminals. It's something reserved for people who don't want their data stolen by all of the banks, who are the main offenders who are currently stealing our data. You know, the Visa and the MasterCard and the Chase Bank and the Citibank and all of that. Maybe we don't want everything paid for in digital form, because all of that data is being sold currently. That is a huge part of the business model of these giant financial institutions. So maybe there's a contingent in society that just doesn't want people having access to that data. They're not doing anything illegal, they just don't want that access. So these coin mixers are one sort of workaround that people have come up with. If you put all the transactions together, then it's harder to see like whose is what, and harder to sell that data. So mixers now, apparently people are clamping down on them. The Netherlands, that's been shut down. Other mixers are saying that they're not going to offer these services to certain countries because those countries have been hostile to it. It is sad to see tech that is helping us, then, you know, people coming down on it. But if you have these centralized services, it's easy to shut things down. Maybe we just need more decentralized ways to make things secure and more private.
Well, we've already seen the U.S. government blacklisting Bitcoin addresses. And there are organizations out there that maintain a blacklist of addresses. And if your address ends up on this blacklist, then coins that can be traced back to your address will likely have to go through additional KYC AML to be deposited in exchanges, or places like Changelly or Shapeshift will require that your coins go through additional KYC AML if they can be tracked back to these addresses or to these mixers. So even using a mixer can result in non-fungibility of Bitcoin coins, because it will add traceable. The whole blockchain is traceable. That's kind of the point. So we're likely going to see more completely anonymous, completely confidential coins coming out that, to say the only way to move coins is to move them confidentially. That will remove the blacklisting of addresses. Sure, that might result in entire organizations not being able to use these privacy coins or them being outlawed in certain countries, but at least all the coins on the chains will actually be fungible. So it is definitely a fight where the government says, sure, you have a right to privacy, so just show us all your data. And the old classic phrase of it, if you have nothing to hide, there's nothing to be afraid of, which we all know is a complete and utter lie, because the government can and will find you for anything you do, no matter how innocent it is. And we all commit those 3 felonies a day. And with crypto, those 3 felonies a day are entirely survive forever on the blockchain. So there's more ways for the government to come after the average person for nothing and no reason, so that they have complete control. So you're afraid to be that person who stands up and speaks out against the government, because they always will have a way to get you.
Absolutely. But there are companies that are trying to fight back and give people back that freedom, that autonomy. So Samourai Wallet has been in the space for a long time. They focus on Android users, and it's an app that's specifically designed to enhance privacy while using Bitcoin. Now, they have been looking more and more into how to give users back more privacy. They recently just got a $100,000 investment from Cypherpunk Holdings, because they are really trying to clamp down on this fight against Bitcoin surveillance. They are tired of this and are trying to create products. So that's interesting that you have developers like this who are still fighting for this. And I'm interested to see what they come out with. Have you used Samourai before, Chris?
In the distant past, I've used them. They've been adding built-in mixing and whatnot. They have built-in protection against dusting attacks, where you can blacklist transactions. So I've been somewhat a fan of them. They've been the first ones to use BIP39 on the Bitcoin. I think they're still the only wallet that uses BIP39. Not BIP39, that's the mnemonics. I can't remember what the BIP I'm talking about now is with the one-time use addresses, but that's okay. I'll figure it out later. BIP 37 was the BIP I was thinking of. Jeez.
No. All these bips. How could you confuse bips, Chris?
I don't know. I am ashamed. I will prostrate myself before the Bitcoin gods. But I'm a big fan of Samourai. I think they make a very good product. So I hope that more people use them. I hope they can use this money to continue to do things good for our privacy. But just, always be aware, even in Samourai, be aware that using those mixers can cause issues with your coins and sending to some exchanges, and likely will get worse before it gets better, particularly when using exchanges based out of countries like the US or Europe or Australia, for that matter.
Right. And it's important to also know that, they're talking about Bitcoin privacy, but they're not just focused on Bitcoin. So they are looking into privacy coins themselves. And they think that there's room to grow in terms of demand on both sides, like privacy coins and on Bitcoin as well. So they're trying to create tools that add privacy to Bitcoin, and also maybe it might be good for people to just be looking into privacy coins to start using as well. I mean, what are your thoughts there? I'm always a little hesitant there, because I think that a lot of the times, because the usage is so small for a lot of these privacy coins, it seems like it's just a giant red flag saying like, oh, you're using this privacy coin, I'm gonna look into you. Like, it's kind of like, hey, look over here. So I'm always hesitant to encourage people to look into that, but at the same time, I love what Francois says about this. The more people, the more sample size we have in the privacy sphere using these privacy tools, keeping their transactions private using privacy coins, then the harder it is for people to be tracked. If everyone's being private, then it's hard for the government to target anyone.
Exactly. That's why I'm a big fan of always on privacy coins that require privacy. That's why I'm working with Bitcoin Confidential that requires privacy to send coins. And that's why I think that, yeah, they may be a black flag to some people if the government catches you using them in the long run. We don't really know what that'll do, but it'll be harder to figure out that you are actually doing that than it will be to figure out if your coins went through a mixer at some point on the Bitcoin network. So if you do care about privacy, going with an always-on privacy coin is likely a better solution than trying to use a mixer in Bitcoin. Yeah. So that's why I very much love always-on privacy coins like Monero's. They've made a lot of changes to make that a lot better on their network. Bitcoin Confidential that I'm working with is the same. Avoid zero coin. If you don't know why to avoid zero coin, just do some searches. It is horrible, and there are constant vulnerabilities with it, so avoid any coins that use that. But and hopefully people don't lambaste me for that, but whatever. And so I think it is important, and I think everybody has a right to transact privately should they so desire.
Yeah. Can we just clarify something? Because I'm getting some pushback in the chat from Llama about your comment saying that on average people commit 3 felonies a day. So this isn't an outrageous thing for Chris to be saying. If you look at the number of laws on the books that were just never taken back, we're doing illegal, like it's illegal to pick up a eagle feather, right? Or any feather, right? Yeah. It's illegal to like do all these crazy things that might have made sense 200 years ago, but make absolutely no sense, but they never left the books. So yes, on average, people are committing all these crimes that we don't even know about because it's impossible for a single person to know about all of the laws in existence. There's just, I mean, how many lifetimes do they say that it would take for you to actually read through, let alone memorize, but just to read through
I don't even know, but it's huge. I mean, but the whole 3 felonies a day thing, it's sort of it's something people have said for a while. Just search Google for 3 felonies a day. You'll see articles in the Wall Street Journal about it. You'll see a book by some random person apparently released fairly recently about it. There's articles about 8 ways you regularly commit felonies without realizing it. This is a result of the over-criminalization of day-to-day American life and things that should not be on the federal law books and federal regulatory books. And there's a distinction there too, because a lot of things can end up on the regulatory books that themselves aren't criminalized, and then another law is passed that result in the criminalization of violating certain regulations. So there's no specific law passed to criminalize a certain thing. It's that bureaucrats make things regulatory problematic, and then the lawmakers come along and say, well, anything that organization says is a federal crime is a federal crime. So you can have a lot of things like that. And there's plenty of examples of people going through this over the years. So it is certainly worth reading about.
Yeah, for sure. Let's move on. I want to talk about Localbitcoins. So this is another organization that, when people say, what's the best way to buy crypto? Oh, well, you can use something like Localbitcoins. You can pay in cash, and it's a good way to use it without using like your debit card or something like that and attaching your name. Now, Localbitcoins actually delved into KYC not too long ago, so that stopped being an option for people who didn't want to associate their identity with crypto addresses. They've actually just stopped using cash for crypto as an option for traders. Before, you used to be able to organize to meet someone in person and purchase crypto. That's no longer an option there, and I think that's one less option that people should have on these things. But like, because of the crackdown on this sort of thing, because so many people are going to jail for literally like in person giving crypto to someone, they're being considered money transmitters for someone wants to buy $5 worth of Bitcoin, they're suddenly a money transmitter if they enter into that transaction. And there's also been a honeypot as well, a way for people to actually capture people who are doing this sort of thing. So they've actually stopped doing this. That's no longer an option. It's still an option on some of the other platforms, but Localbitcoin was probably one of the most famous examples of a site that enabled this sort of thing.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting timing to go along with everything else. I certainly thought about it when we were talking about EOS and their AML KYC to have a voice account there. And I thought that was interesting timing. And I guess it probably goes together with Bitcoin.com coming up with basically their own Localbitcoins. And so many of these sites you go to and, you have a United States IP address, you can't use the site. So thank you to United States for making our lives more difficult for no good reason. So, so frustrating that they do
So
this to them.
frustrating indeed. Let's move on to something else that will make us even more frustrated. So, only good news on this show. The copyright for the Satoshi white paper that Craig Wright filed. Apparently, this is already causing some strife for people, because if you copyright something and someone posts this white paper, which has been available readily for 10 years, with this open source MIT license, but someone says no, I'm going to copyright this, so people are starting to take it down because they don't want to be posting something that apparently is copyrighted. Like, it's the most insane thing ever.
Well, I mean, when people talk about how you might commit 3 felonies a day and say, well, that's why you have good lawyers, it doesn't matter when these laws cause companies to stop showing things that should be in the public domain simply because they're afraid of what somebody might or might not do against them, simply because a person like Craig issued a completely indefensible copyright. So you have, Scribd is taking down a copy of the Bitcoin white paper that CoinDesk had hosted there, because Scribd said, well, there's copyright on it now, we can't host it. And various other sites are doing the same things just because there's completely indefensible copyright there. However, those copyrights stay on the books until they're actually challenged in court. So until somebody is willing to actually take somebody else to court over something like this is going to continue to cause issues for you and me having access to something. Or, realistically, you and I will still be able to have access to whatever we want because we know how to look for it. But for the average Joe out there who doesn't really know how to look for it, is going to say, well, it's copyrighted. If he has the copyright, he's Satoshi. Scribe took it down, so I can't read it now. Oh, well. And it's continuing to cause issues.
It's insane because anyone can file a copyright for anything. We've proven, Craig filed the copyright, but, what's his name?
We talked about it last week, and anything, I guess, is...
Yeah, you have more people. Yeah, you have more people filing copyrights for the same white paper. So it just goes to show you that these are conflicting claims here, and yet this is now stopping people get access to things. So the company Scribd apparently took down CoinDesk's version of the white paper because they said they didn't have access to it, but they didn't have access to it because of 2 competing claims, and we can't prove the veracity of either of those claims. Like, it's just very crazy, chilling effect that it has on the community when you have these organizations. They're not investigating these claims at all, but they're just taking down information. They're just stopping information being shared because someone paid $55 for that privilege. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, because their lawyers, who they pay well, told them you can't post anything other here, otherwise you put yourself at risk of a lawsuit.
Thank you, Kieran.
Yes. So they have to deal with this, and their good lawyers are telling them not to do something they have the right to do. It's not even illegal, but they have to defend themselves just in case. And we pay the price.
Right. For sure. Let's move on. We want to talk about a little bit about Facebook Coin, calling it Global Coin. Now, there's some more news has come out about this. I don't want to dwell on it because I don't really want to talk about Facebook too much. But they said that they're going to reveal the information in June about this, and apparently it's going to be tied to multiple currencies. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I need to get more details. They say they're releasing their white paper on June 18th, so it'll be interesting to see what they have to say for themselves. It's unclear to me if they're going to have multiple versions of this coin that have multiple fiat pegs, or if it's going to be some weird peg to some weighted average for multiple currencies. I don't know. It'll be very interesting. The whole charging third parties $10 million to support the network as nodes. I mean, this whole thing is just completely and utterly awful. But it would be
completely, inevitably awful. I might write an article titled just that.
Yeah, there you go. Feel free to use it. I won't trademark the phrase.
Thank you so much. You're not going to sue me afterwards?
No. So I will be interested to read what their white paper is to see where they're really going with their global coin, which again could not have a more evil name, I guess. It's just
I
like,
know. It's like global coin, world watch. Like it's very yeah. Yeah, I don't quite
I
quite like
still
that.
think too, Mr. Robot and Evil Coin. That's what I still just go back to. And there's not a whole lot of info that's actually out there with actual details. So, like we're saying, revealing it June 18th is when I'm assuming they're going to reveal it via the white paper. I don't know when they're going to actually launch it, but they're going to offer to pay their employees in this global coin now. So their employees will be able to collect salaries via this, which is interesting. Um, and I'll have to see where it actually goes because it could be frightening. Then again, I tend to think that the tides lifting up Facebook and Twitter are somewhat going down. I hope open source and decentralized things like Voice will be able to take some of the wind out of their sails, in which case this global coin likely won't go anywhere. But they do have a lot of money to play with, and that money can do a lot of things. And sure, Block One has $4 billion, but Facebook has a bit more than that. And since they're charging people $10 million to verify blocks, they will have continued money.
Indeed. I want to move on. I want to talk a little bit, mention Komodo. So I did want to have someone on the show to talk about this, but wasn't able to get through in time. But apparently, Komodo hacked their own users or something in order to prevent like a $13 million theft. So that's interesting. Have you looked into this at all, Chris?
Not much, just at a very surface level. I meant to message some people to try to get some more details about it, but never heard back from them by the time this show happened. Um, but basically, NPM is a backend portal that software uses to pull essentially libraries for JavaScript applications. And so they basically used the exploit to close the vulnerability for users who had already downloaded the wallet. Um, Basically, if they had lost seed phrases or passphrases, then supposedly this would help protect those people who may have lost them in the past. However, they did send out multiple notices this week that you use the Agama wallet in the past, that you need to move your coins to a newer version of the wallet. Don't just update the wallet, but actually move your coins to a new wallet so you're using a new passphrase and seed phrase that wouldn't have been compromised in the past. So it'll be it's just one of those things where Komodo's kind of on top of this. Speaking of Zero Coin, Komodo released a patch for Zero Coin a few weeks ago that still affects a bunch of the other big coins out there, and Komodo noticed it first, related to metadata on the Zero Coin protocol. But so I kind of like how Komodo works and keeps pushing things forward. I just have mixed feelings about some of the choices they've made, but they definitely do work to protect their users as much as they can.
Let's talk about some of the choices that Kodak has made. So we kind of, we've had a little bit of fun talking about Kodak in the past, but now, like, talking about like Kodak coin that never really went anywhere. It was kind of like the height of the shitcoin era. Wait, I gotta sneeze. No, it's gone. All right. So apparently they've launched a blockchain-enabled document management system. So this is their new pivot. Like, rather than having a coin thing, they're going into document management. So that seems cool. Like, they're kind of starting to get it. They're understanding the use case of this and exploring it. Like, it could be interesting. Chris, what are your thoughts on Kodak chain?
Well, Kodak has a history of missing the boat. They had digital photography and digital cameras before anybody else did. They developed the tech, and then they looked at it and said, nobody's going to use this, and moved on and
Oh,
stuck with
no.
film for forever while everybody else ran with the digital camera. And they've lost a lot of money because of that. And so I think that you have a lot of people at Kodak going, we can't miss this boat. What if this is the next digital camera? And trying to tie blockchain to their name so they can say they're using this new technology, even though they don't really know how they're going to actually use it. So again, their coin isn't yet trading. They're talking about another ICO, but nothing happened with it. And they apparently did have a bit of a price jump last year, but they're still pretty low right now as far as their stock price goes. So I don't think anybody's necessarily biting at this. But you can't necessarily discount a company as old as Kodak that survived a lot of tech changes. It's just they are obviously flailing around right now trying to make sure they don't miss this boat as well.
Indeed. Someone mentioned that they sent through on BitBacker a donation of Power Chat, extremely stable genius. And so I just want to let you guys know with BitBacker what's going on a little bit there, an update for you, because it just asked, said, hi, watching live, I think. Who knows on this show? Who really knows? Can you confirm that you are actually getting this and not just seeing the text? Can you keep us updated with what's happening with BitBacker? Never heard of Float app. So Float is a new app. They just acquired BitBacker, so all of the bugs will be ironed out over this coming few months, so that's pretty exciting. But also you'll get a bunch more features going in there. It's I'm not sure, I think a lot of you, if you're kind of in the libertarianish space, then you might have met the people who run Float. Really awesome team, good friends, and I think they're going to do a fantastic job in just supporting the community and all of that. So I think at the moment BCH transactions have been frozen so that they don't go through on the site. Other coins do go through, but Bitcoin Cash doesn't, because there was a shift in there and that hasn't been worked out yet, just so you know. So I think I am just getting text and no money being sent through there. So make sure you're keeping track of your browser. I think it should be frozen so you can't actually make the transaction. If not, I'll follow that up, but it shouldn't be going through at the moment. But I'm going to keep you guys updated. I'm actually doing an interview with Kingsley, who is the CEO of Float, later today, and I'll be posting that this weekend. And that'll give you a backstory of how BitBacker was created, my involvement in that, which has kind of been like on the periphery. I'm not really involved in the organization or anything, but I am closely tied to it, as you will find out. But I'm going to be an advisor for Float as they go forward, just so I can keep an eye on the community, make sure that if you guys have features that you want to see added, they're really open-minded to looking into this stuff and wanting to know, you guys are the users, you're the ones who move to cryptocurrency, you're the ones who understand it and see why this is better in a lot of ways than something like Patreon that doesn't use crypto. So let me know constantly what you guys want to see, and I'll definitely follow that up. So just a quick update for you, extremely stable genius, and thank you for the thought. Even though the money didn't go through, I still really appreciate the message. So let's move on. Just a couple more things that I want to cover. We got Congressman Budd defends the blockchain. And this is interesting. You don't often see people in Congress standing up for blockchain at all, but he defends it. He, on June 4th, was apparently talking to the US House Ways and Means Committee, and he called the development and protection of the domestic blockchain industry an issue of national security. So that's interesting. Like, I know, Chris, last week we talked a little bit about that sort of thing and how these politicians avoid the word cryptocurrency. They just talk about blockchain tech. But even then, it is kind of interesting to see them defending it as a matter of national security, because in the past, the government's gone against encryption and wanting to see people use these tools. But now they're like, no, we need to defend blockchain and let people use it, also for national security. So, like, what's your take on what's going on here?
Well, as normal, whenever I look at these things, I have to make sure if they're talking about blockchain or cryptocurrency, because I'm that kind of wet blanket. But this guy actually is talking about things like the Cryptocurrency Tax Fairness Act and so on and so forth, that he's concerned that the U.S. is going to fall behind when it comes to these things because of the effective double taxation of crypto users. Anybody who wants to actually spend crypto in the United States has to have a huge burden of paperwork, which I hate doing whenever I have to do it. And he's aware of that, and he's talking about it, and how he's saying we are falling behind because of the regulatory burden and the paperwork burden we're putting on average individuals. And speaking of committing felonies, whatever, every day, so many people have no clue. If I just buy something from you in Bitcoin, that is a taxable event. You have to keep track of your cost basis. I have to figure out what my cost basis was, figure out what my capital gains or losses are, and then deal with the sales tax of the item itself. And that's just hugely overhead and burdensome for people to actually buy and sell and exchange in cryptocurrency and use it as an actual medium of exchange in the United States. So it's good that we have Congress people actually aware of this issue and continuing to bring it up for whatever reason, which I am quite pleased about.
Yeah. So I do want to just move on, and just one more thing before we end today, because we are going a little bit over time because of the hiccups at the start. You know what, guys? I haven't been showing your comments. Usually on the stream, I have the nice little box where you could see people's comments. I really love doing that, but I haven't done that in this video because I'm so scared of clicking anything. When the system's working, I just don't want to click anything. So if anyone has experienced these issues with Streamlabs, let me know, because I would love to put those comments back on the screen. I just don't want to change anything because I'm so scared of the echo coming back. So just one more thing as we end off here. I want to talk about the Marshall Islands. So we've talked about them in the past when they first started looking into creating a digital sovereign currency, like a cryptocurrency. There was a lot of pushback from the IMF, basically saying, you know what, maybe the US won't want to deal with you and trade with you, and basically threatening them. They've gone ahead and looked into the world of cryptocurrency anyway. They've set up the National Digital Legal Tender. It's called the Sovereign, SOV. And now they've just gone ahead and set up a non-profit organization to oversee oversee this currency. So I mean, it's interesting when you see these kinds of national currencies. I don't always, just because they're crypto, I don't always think like, yay, they're crypto, that's great. I do applaud Marshall Islands for standing up and saying we're going to do this, even though we were threatened by the IMF. I think that's interesting that they're trying to get out of the thumb of the United States, who obviously gives them a lot of money for obvious reasons, but then it gets to control their decisions a lot. But they've gone ahead and done this anyway, but now they have this agency, and like, it's not something I'm going to be investing in. Let's just say that. It's it's kind of another government fiat. But what are your thoughts, Chris?
Well, it's, if you look at it as a cryptocurrency, it's essentially a pre-mined coin that's distributed somehow to individuals. I couldn't quite figure out exactly how they're handing it out. The development fund, that is this nonprofit that's going to manage and maintain it and upgrade and whatnot, is getting 30% of the initial supply. So there's a pre-mine to the developers. And then theoretically, it's going to be self-funding moving on, though I couldn't quite get all the details on there, though possibly if I click through to more links, I will. I don't care that Roy shared this document with me. It's weird. This is the why I couldn't read it before. But I find it interesting they're trying to somewhat remove it from the actual government's control into this nonprofit's control, which I approve of conceptually, of not having the government manage the currency. But it depends on how this entity is actually managed, because if it's like the Fed in the US, which is theoretically a private bank that has monopoly rights on the production of money and has its heads appointed by the government, I'm not sure how much you would actually call that a private entity. So I'm excited to see where this goes. It seems like it's something they're doing that is somewhat better than what Venezuela has done with their petro. But at the same time, I don't think I would rush out to buy some right now.
I like the way we're both being so diplomatic with it. I wouldn't necessarily give investment advice on this national digital currency. I look at these, I let people know about them because I think they're interesting. It's interesting to see what's going on around the world with different countries exploring this stuff, different ways that different areas are benefiting from cryptocurrency or are experimenting with it. It's nice to keep track of, but not necessarily the most exciting stuff happening in crypto, and not necessarily what I think is most important. I think there are really interesting developments going on in the private space and in public. When I say private space, I've got to be careful with that. I mean in like public blockchains, not in government controlled blockchains. So yeah, this is just one of the things going on in the world that I wanted to let people know about, so you know what's going on in the Marshall Islands. But yeah, that's everything that I wanted to cover in this show. I'm really excited to see who Justin Sun picks. I have volunteered myself to, serenade them with Bitcoin songs should they need it, which they might, because who knows?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to eat lunch while listening to Bitcoin Girl songs.
Just go to them and serenade them with Bitcoin.
Bitcoin, mimnano, atarashi. Okay. So anyway, that is going on. I'm excited to see who he picks. I sent him an email actually. I'm like, I would recommend Eric Voorhees and Caitlin Long. So they're the two people I'd pick. Who would you guys pick? Because there are lots of awesome people out there. Eric, one of the people I think is most eloquent on the subject of cryptocurrency, writes, as you said earlier. Actually, no, I think that Ashe mentioned it. Prolifically, and is always very eloquent there. So I think he'd be a great spokesperson. But also people like Tim Draper have been really great spokesperson, and kind of in a similar field to Warren Buffett. So maybe can connect with him on a level that the other business people might not. But they're people that I think would be interesting. Like, I would love to know your suggestions though, so let me know. Chris, who are your suggestions?
I mean, Jesse Powell would be interesting to go, managing the Kraken exchange, which I think was listed by one of those people as the most trustworthy exchange in the world, as they found a bunch of wash trading on Binance and some of the other big ones. So hopefully, people like Jesse Powell can continue guiding things a little bit there, despite his recent spat with Bitcoin SV and whatnot. But there's a lot of good people in there. There's probably people who we wouldn't necessarily know about, but who have had a lot of history in the investment world.
Well, I also think someone like Vitalik, I really love Vitalik, actually. I think he's just delightful. He's like, I love the clothes he wears. I love his demeanor. He's kind of awesome, right? He seems like someone who would deserve a spot at that table as an industry leader. He also seems like someone who would be one of the last people I'd pick if I'm trying to convince someone, why Bitcoin's worthwhile, why crypto's worthwhile, because he's so jargony. Like, you ask him a question, it just goes off into this rabbit hole of mathematics, and no one really gets what's going on. And if you're coming from a non-technical background like Warren Buffett, I just don't see him being that helpful. But, it would be entertaining. I wish this were live streamed, because I would love to see a conversation between Vitalik and Warren Buffett. I think that would be just delightful.
Oh, I absolutely wish this would be live streamed, because I mean, even just Justin and Vitalik eating lunch together would be entertaining enough to watch. But yeah, I agree that Vitalik and Buffett probably wouldn't have all that much to talk about. Just, I don't see them having a good meeting of the minds there. But I agree. He's certainly somebody who would be very interesting to have up there, and he deserves a mention at least. But I don't think that he would be the right tool for that job.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but we'll see, and I'll keep everyone posted on Justin's decisions once they are made. But other than that, that is the end of today's weekly recap. Huge thank you to Ashe and Chris for being on the show. It's always a delight. Chris, thank you for being here.
Well, happy to be here, and very excited times. A lot of fun things to talk about. So
a lot of fun
things.
It
was fun, despite the echo at the beginning. And
I know. From now on, okay, so these are my new steps forward. I'm not going to click anything. Once I start, I'm just not going to click anything. I'm not going to, because before, things that I'm narrowing it down to, I opened a Brave browser in the middle of a stream because I wanted to copy the link of the chat so that I could add it to my thing and show you guys the chat. And then an echo started. So that's something I won't do. I muted my microphone. That's something that that made a difference before, so I won't do that again. I think that I'm just like going to do as little as possible because Windows computers are just so sensitive. So that, you know, anyone has any other suggestions, let me know. I would love to have a fully functional show where I don't need to worry about this stuff, but clearly that's not on the card. So let me know your suggestions. But always really, really fun to have you guys here in the chat. Thank you so much for spending your Friday afternoon with us. We love having you here and love chatting with you. And anyone who watches the replay, they can see the chat even if it's not embedded into the actual video. And Chris, you go and have a wonderful weekend. I hope you have lots of fun things planned.
Yeah, we're finally having a not rainy weekend here, so I'm gonna go out with my girls and we're gonna have a good time. Not in front of the computer.
Not in front, as if. That's not going to happen, Chris. You'll end up in front of your computer. I'll call you up and be like, oh, there's news, Chris. Let's talk about it on a live stream. There'll be lots of echo, I promise. So, yeah, have an awesome weekend, everyone. Love having you here. Thank you for the power chat on BitBacker, even though it wasn't quite a power chat, more just a friendly chat. So that was great, and I'll keep you guys posted on that, and I'll be posting that video from Kingsley this weekend to let you guys know all the details of what's going on. So have a wonderful weekend. Bye.
Sayonara.
Awesome seeing you all.